It was almost midnight when she finally gathered the courage. The little cursor blinked in the corner of her pitch deck like a heartbeat. She smoothed her hands over the keyboard and looked across the couch at him. Her voice trembled as she began. The room smelled like burnt kettle corn and lavender detergent. They'd spent hundreds of nights like this, half watching Netflix and half scrolling on their phones. But tonight was different. She was asking him to listen. She walked him through the idea slide by slide. An app for micro businesses, a platform for overlooked creators. She showed him the market gap, the branding draft, even her ugly first logo. Her cheeks flushed every time she stumbled over her words, but her eyes stayed bright. She was building something real. He didn't say much, just leaned back in his hoodie and nodded. Until she reached the final slide. Until she whispered, "I really believe this could work." He chuckled. The kind of laugh that doesn't ask permission. It slid out slowly, like molasses with a smirk. He blinked once, then shook his head like he couldn't believe her. "You? A CEO? That's cute." She froze. She didn't cry, didn't stammer. She just closed the laptop, gently, like tucking a child into bed. Her hands stayed on the lid for a second longer than necessary. That's when something shifted. He reached for the remote, already bored. She went silent. But inside, her breath had turned to fire. He went to sleep thinking nothing of it. She stayed up, eyes wide open in the dark, replaying that laugh, that smirk, that moment he turned her dream into a joke. He didn't know she ordered her domain name that night, didn't see her sketching new wireframes the next morning while he scrolled through TikTok. He was too busy mocking her ambition to notice she was already leaving him behind. The breakup came quietly. No slammed doors, no betrayal. Just a slow and silent frost between texts and toothbrushes. He didn't ask why. She didn't explain. She owed him nothing. 2 years later, her company had a downtown office and 3 full-time employees. She still didn't take a salary. She still brewed coffee in the break room herself, but investors were calling. Clients were growing. Her inbox had momentum. One rainy Thursday, HR forwarded a new resume for review. Her assistant handed her the manila folder mid-meeting. She opened it out of habit, then froze. There he was. Name, contact, history, seeking a marketing position. She scanned it twice. Then again, same smirk in the photo, but the title was gone. Just another applicant. No idea where he was sending his resume. No clue the CEO reading it was the same woman he once called cute. She closed the folder, took a breath, and smiled. The past didn't deserve revenge. It didn't even deserve an explanation. The rejection email went out that evening. Polite, professional, but firm. She had a pitch deck to present the next morning to a room full of men who didn't laugh. The arguments weren't loud, not at first. They came softly, like static beneath the surface of everyday things. A snide comment over dinner. A patronizing shrug when she brought up her plans. He would nod absently when she shared her ideas, then change the subject to his new headphones or how much he made that month. Every time she mentioned the startup, he acted like she had said she wanted to become a unicorn trainer. He didn't say she was foolish, not exactly, but his tone always did. She started noticing how often he interrupted her, how often his voice got louder when hers grew passionate. He didn't mean to be cruel. That was his favorite defense. "I'm just being realistic," he'd say. It's not personal. But it always felt personal. He kept framing his doubt as wisdom. Every goal she reached, he'd deflate. Every small win, he'd brush off. It was exhausting, trying to build something while sharing space with someone who didn't believe in her. One night, she showed him her product roadmap, something she had worked on for days. He skimmed it in silence, then looked up with a raised brow. "You really think this is going to take off?" She looked at him for a long time, unsure if he even realized how much it hurt. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, eyes full of casual dismissal. "You know, I'm just trying to help. I don't want you to waste your time chasing something that's not going to work." She closed the notebook and stood up. He didn't even flinch. She walked into the bedroom and began folding clothes. Quietly, calmly, one shirt after another. He followed her in with a smirk. "You're seriously upset about that? Don't be so dramatic. You're not leaving over this." She didn't reply. She zipped her suitcase slowly. The click echoed in the small room. "You're throwing everything away for a fantasy," he scoffed. "We live in the real world." She lifted her laptop bag over her shoulder and looked him in the eye. I'd rather chase something that keeps me alive than stay somewhere that slowly kills me. She left without slamming the door. No tears, no yelling. Just silence and footsteps down the stairs. The night was warm. The city felt strangely quiet, like it was holding its breath. She didn't have a new apartment, just a friend's couch and a key to a co-working space that stayed open late. But she also had something else now. A promise. One she made to herself without speaking a word. Never again. Never again would she beg to be heard. Never again would she shrink to fit someone else's version of what was possible. She had one suitcase and a dream, and sometimes that's enough to begin everything. The first morning was cold, even though it was summer. She sat in the corner of a coffee shop near the train station, her laptop resting on a chipped wooden table, headphones in, caffeine pulsing through her veins. Everything she owned fit into 2 bags parked beside her. Rent was out of the question. For now, she couch surfed between 3 friends who asked no questions and offered blankets without pity. Her life had been downsized to code, notebooks, and black coffee. She lived cheap. Instant noodles, thrifted coats, and bus passes. Every dollar stretched, every purchase considered. Her clothes smelled like old books and lavender detergent, and her phone charger was held together with tape. But every time she opened her laptop, she remembered why. This wasn't survival. It was construction. Quiet, back alley, brick-by-brick construction of something no one else could yet see. She studied everything. Algorithms, user flow, pitch decks, funding strategies. Her browser had 100 open tabs and no breaks. She failed more often than not. Early builds crashed. Her mock-ups looked like kindergarten drawings. Beta testers ignored her surveys. Some laughed, some ghosted. A mentor she respected once told her gently, "Maybe this isn't it." She thanked him and stayed up until 4 in the morning building the next prototype anyway. She launched quietly. No press, no announcement. Just a midnight post on a startup forum and a few cold emails sent from her friend's kitchen counter. Within days, she got her first real rejection. A firm said no with a condescending smile. Another never responded. One told her she needed a male co-founder to be taken seriously. She said thank you and moved on. Her inbox remained a graveyard of silence. But one morning, something shifted. A small business in Detroit downloaded her app. Then a podcast mentioned her platform in passing. Then a journalist reached out asking if she had a press kit. She didn't, but she made one that night. Investor meetings followed. First, awkward Zoom calls from noisy coffee shops, then co-working conference rooms borrowed from friends. She practiced her pitch until she could say it in her sleep. She no longer asked for approval. She walked in with data and clarity. Her nights were still long, her meals still simple, but her days had weight now. The kind that comes from momentum. She started waking up to calendar invites, people asking for time, asking for access, not because she begged, but because the product was beginning to breathe on its own. She kept a folder labeled firsts. Her first paying client, her first user testimonial, her first investor wire. Whenever doubt crept in, she opened it and remembered the corner coffee shop and the nights of ramen and silence. She didn't post updates, didn't brag. The climb was slow, private, and deliberate. But with each new day, she stopped feeling like a girl chasing a fantasy. She was building something. Something that now had numbers, faces, names. It was real, and it was growing. The first article was short. Just 3 paragraphs on a mid-tier tech blog that mostly covered bootstrapped founders and early beta launches. She almost missed it. A user had tagged the company in a comment, and she clicked the link without thinking. There it was, her app's name in bold. A paragraph about how it solved a real pain point for small creators, a sentence about the clean user experience, and her favorite line of all, built by an independent founder with something to prove. She read it twice, then once more just to be sure it was real. Her fingers hovered over the share button, but she didn't post it. She just smiled and got back to work. A week later, someone from a podcast messaged her, said they loved what she was building, asked if she'd be open to an interview. She said yes with shaking hands and recorded the episode from her apartment floor, surrounded by cardboard boxes and a dying plant. Her voice cracked once, but she didn't edit it out. The host called her resilient, called her a visionary. She had never thought of herself that way, but maybe now she would. Then came the ripple. Clients began signing up without needing a sales call. A local newsletter featured her in a column called Founders to Watch. The app's dashboard lit up with new users. Her phone buzzed with Stripe notifications, small but steady. She no longer had to refresh her inbox in hope. It filled on its own. She signed the lease on a real office on a Wednesday. Nothing fancy, just a sunlit space with creaky floors and too many windows, but it had her name on it, and keys, and potential. She furnished it with mismatched desks and whiteboards she found secondhand. The coffee maker was cheap, the energy was priceless. Her first hire was a developer from Twitter who had DM'd her months ago. The second was a marketing grad who showed up to the interview with a list of things the app could be doing better. She hired her on the spot. They painted the walls themselves on a Sunday afternoon, music playing through a Bluetooth speaker and paint on their shoes. For the first time in years, she felt like she wasn't building alone. The LinkedIn page went live late one night. The logo she'd drawn on a napkin, now professionally rendered and sitting beside 3 words, "We're hiring soon." Within hours, it had likes, comments, shares. The name of her startup began to appear in places she used to scroll through while dreaming. Articles, forums, threads, funding round reports, platforms he definitely read. But he didn't know yet. Not really. He had no idea the founder behind the buzz was the woman he once told to stop chasing fantasy. No clue that the startup now filling his feed was the very dream he laughed at. She didn't tell anyone. She didn't need to. The truth was coming. And when it did, it would speak louder than any breakup ever could. It came in on a Tuesday afternoon, buried beneath a stack of new applicant emails. The subject line was plain: application for marketing strategist role. Her HR manager forwarded it with a short message at the top, barely a sentence: "Is this who I think it is?" She clicked. And then everything slowed. There was his name, clear as day, first and last, the same signature she used to see on texts that made her question herself. His email, unchanged. His cover letter was long, filled with big words and carefully curated sentences. He wrote about his passion for storytelling, about his deep belief in startups that serve the underserved. He even mentioned how inspired he was by the company's mission to empower women-led businesses. She read it once, all the way through, then again, then a third time, slower. Her mouth stayed shut, her shoulders stiff. Somewhere outside her glass-walled office, her team was laughing over something by the snack shelf. Inside, the silence pressed in. She stared at his words, remembering the night he had looked her in the eye and called her a dreamer. Not the kind people admire, the kind they dismiss. She remembered the way he used to sigh when she pulled out her laptop, how he called her stubborn, unreasonable. How he once told her that ambition in women was like perfume a little goes a long way, but too much and it's unbearable. Now here he was, reaching out to a company that didn't exist when they were together, a company she had built from coffee-stained notebooks and sleepless nights, a company he wouldn't recognize if he passed the logo on a billboard. But he had recognized something. Maybe the traction, maybe the buzz, maybe the sudden appearance in all those industry newsletters. He had seen the spark he tried to snuff out, and now he wanted in. She sat back in her chair, eyes closed. For a moment, she thought about what it would be like to bring him in for an interview. To sit across from him, polished and poised, and ask the questions she already knew he couldn't answer, to watch him stumble through the very language he once rolled his eyes at, she thought about it. Then let it go. There would be no interview, no response, no call, just a quiet delete. Not out of spite, not out of anger, but because he didn't deserve to stand beneath a roof he never believed could be built. She forwarded the email back to HR. No explanation, just a single line. Not a fit. Then she returned to her task list, the one that mattered. Investor updates, product testing, a new onboarding flow. Her company kept moving, her team kept building. And outside the walls of her office, the world spun on, unaware that another story had just ended without a sound. The decision wasn't impulsive. It came slowly, over the course of a long walk home and a quiet dinner with her thoughts. She didn't need closure. She didn't need revenge. But something about the situation felt unfinished, like a thread left dangling at the edge of a tailored suit. When she told HR to schedule the interview, she kept her voice steady. "Just make sure I handle the final round," she said, then got back to her calendar. The day of the interview arrived without drama. She wore her usual blazer, soft navy with sleeves rolled just enough to show control without trying. Her heels clicked against the polished floor as she walked to the small glass conference room. Sunlight filtered through the windows, casting long shadows across the waiting chairs. She checked her notes once, then waited. He arrived 5 minutes early, dressed sharp, tie a little too tight, hair styled like he wanted to impress someone important. He greeted the receptionist with charm, made a comment about the art on the wall. He glanced around at the branding, the posters, the logo stenciled on the glass. He looked impressed, curious, hopeful, but he didn't know. Not yet. When she stepped into the room, his back was to the door. She closed it gently behind her. The sound made him turn. He froze. Recognition spread across his face like spilled ink. First confusion, then surprise, then something closer to panic. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. She smiled, calm and professional. "Thank you for coming in today. I'll be conducting your final interview." He blinked once, then laughed nervously. "Wait, you're the founder?" She sat across from him and folded her hands. "That's right." His voice tripped over itself, trying to recover. "This is wild. I had no idea. I saw the company name, but I never imagined." She didn't interrupt, just opened her notebook and clicked her pen. He straightened in his seat. "I've been following your growth for a while now. Really love the mission. Empowering women. That's so important." He looked at her for a reaction. She gave him none. He began answering questions, stumbled through the technical ones, overcompensated with buzzwords, bragged a little too loudly about his experience, his strategy, his so-called passion for early-stage startups. She nodded, jotted notes, asked for clarification when needed. She was gracious, unshaken, focused. But beneath her calm exterior, she was watching. Not him, herself. The version of her who once stayed quiet in the face of ridicule. The version who used to shrink when he doubted her. That girl was gone. When the interview ended, he leaned forward with forced confidence. "I really appreciate the opportunity. I think I could bring a lot of value here." She stood and extended her hand. "Thank you for your time. We'll let you know." His handshake was damp. She walked him out, then returned to her office and closed the door. The room was still. Her heart wasn't racing. There was no satisfaction, no drama, just a quiet sense of closure. Some endings don't need an exclamation. Some just need a period. He sees her name first in a headline. It's small, tucked beneath a flashy tech feature about rising founders under 35. He scrolls past it, pauses, then scrolls back. It takes him a moment to register. The name is hers. He reads the paragraph again, slower this time. She's described as visionary, self-funded, scaling fast. The photo is recent. She's standing behind a microphone, poised, smiling slightly, confident in a way that doesn't ask for permission. He clicks the link, skims the article. Her company is no longer just a startup. It's a platform, a tool used by thousands, maybe more. She talks about creative freedom, about systems that prioritize equity, about building things that outlast trends. She sounds like someone he doesn't recognize, someone he underestimated. Later that week, he sees a panel clip circulating on social media. She's sitting on stage beside venture capitalists and serial entrepreneurs discussing product market fit and community-led growth. The caption calls her a disruptor. Her voice is clear, steady. He turns the volume up, watches the whole thing. He sees her again in a newsletter he subscribed to, then in a product demo video he's using for a client. Her logo is at the corner of the screen, understated but unmistakable. A tool she built is now embedded in the daily workflows of the very agencies he once admired. He realizes he's been using her product for months without even knowing it. He thinks about reaching out, more than once. Wonders if she'd respond, wonders if she even remembers. But something tells him not to try. It's too late. She doesn't chase the past. She doesn't explain her journey. She just continues. Meanwhile, she moves through her days in high-rise boardrooms and startup campuses, her inbox lined with pitch requests and partnership offers. She no longer applies for interviews. She gives them. She no longer hopes to be heard. She's expected, respected, quoted. The room she enters do not ask for her resume. They already know her name. And yet, despite it all, she stays quiet about him. She never tells the story, never mentions the nights she worked from borrowed Wi-Fi, never talks about the moment he laughed. Not because she's forgotten, but because it no longer defines her. Her revenge was never success. It was clarity. It was watching the world catch up to what she had always known, that she was capable, that she was right, that her vision mattered. She walks into interviews now and sets the tone. She shapes companies. She guides teams. Her voice no longer trembles when she speaks. It carries weight. She walks past magazine covers with her face on them and doesn't slow down. Not because it doesn't mean anything, but because she's already thinking about what comes next. Some stories end with a door slam or a final word. Hers ended in silence. The kind that follows a lesson learned too late. For him, that silence lingers. For her, it simply clears the way.